In this video, I'd like to talk about our PSU, or power supply unit. This is one from a Swift caravan here. So just to give you an idea of how they work, generally they're all pretty similar bar some of the buttons. But this one here is for a Swift. So this is a Sargent power supply unit. If you imagine this cut in half, this side here is our 12-volt system, and this side here is to do with our 240 supply when we are plugged into mains. Okay. So we'll start over on this side. At the top here we have a system shutdown button. This will completely turn off the 12-volt system, and nothing in the van will work 12-volt wise if this is not turned on. So when you're not using the van, generally you would turn this off, and that will just save your battery from depleting. But when we want to use the van, we turn this on. Okay, that will then allow us to turn on our master panel as well and use anything else that we need to in the van. If we need to change any fuses, we use blade fuses, very much like in a car, so this is where you would access those. Depending on what van you've got, there will be a list of what these fuses are. On this particular van here, it's just on the door and tells us what all the fuses are doing. Okay. On the other side of it is our 240 volt side of things. So when we're plugged into mains. So this will look very familiar, so very similar to the trip switches you may have at home. So again, they will tell you what they do on the door that we've just looked at. But these are all separate trip switches. But this is our main one here, which is our main RCD coming into the van. Okay, we can use this for several things. A, it's a safety feature, of course. B, it can also tell us whether we are actually getting 240 volt into the van, because you may well be trying to use your main sockets to plug your hairdryer or something like that in, and you're not getting any power through to it. The way to check whether because 9 times out of 10 the problem will actually be outside the van, not in your van. So I've got a little button here which says test. You see, if I press that, that's tripped down. I know I'm plugged into mains, so that tells me that yes, we do have 240 volt power coming into the van. If I'd have pressed that and this had stayed in the upright position, I know there's no power coming to the unit. So chances are it's a problem with where I'm plugged into, the post on site potentially. They will also have a trip switch as well, or a damaged mains lead not plugged in properly, or something along those lines. All right. So that's just a good way of testing to know whether we do have 240 volt coming into the van or not. Couple of other things we need to talk about are these buttons up here. This one is our battery charger, this one is our hot water. If these are not illuminated, they are not working. Okay, so for instance, if I push my charger button, you can see that has now illuminated, and my battery charger will now be charging my battery in my battery locker. And this one here is my heating and hot water. Now, the panel will still work and you can still do everything that you should do with your panel, but if nothing's getting any hotter and the hot water's not heating up and your caravan's not getting any warmer, this button here probably isn't pressed. So if I press that button there, that will allow the whole system to work when I'm plugged into mains. If you're using gas, it's irrelevant. That's only for our 240 volt side of things. Vans are very similar. Again, they will both have similar things. It's only the Swift that have these buttons up the top, but all your vans will have a 12 volt fuse box and also trip switches for our 240 volt just there. All right. Hope that's useful.